see tons of gay people, but I don't really see that many bisexual people.
Well, some of it may be that you judge people's sexuality by the relationships they're in. So if you see if you see two men together, you may think, oh, they're a couple. Or if you see a man and a woman together, you may think they're a couple. Or two women together, they're a couple. And so you would believe that the two women together are therefore lesbians, and that the two men together are therefore gay, and that the men and the woman are therefore heterosexual. But what they're not necessarily presenting is what their actual sexuality is. I meet a lot of people who are bisexual or curious about bisexuality because I'm a public bisexual.
Do you have an idea of what would be ideal for you, like two men and one woman, or like if you were going to have a long-term relationship, would it be with a couple, or do you have an ideal?
Well, I was about to say that fortunately for me, I don't have to choose. I can do what I want. But in fact, my choice is the choice I have made. My life currently is it's fairly polyamorous, and I have ongoing relationships with certain people who come to have relationships with one another, whether or not they're sexual, but they're definitely friends of one another.
Do you think that's like really much closer to the way like the human being was out in nature before we became civilized?
Ideas that we think of as traditions, like marriage and monogamy, are fairly modern ideas.
Right.
And they evolve generation to generation. So the way you think of monogamy is different than the way your grandparents thought of monogamy.
Absolutely.
Which is very different from the way their grandparents thought about it.
Right.
But we tend to think about sexuality as true givens, like carved in stone. But in fact, it's as immutable as the individuals involved in it.
So you have an alternative lifestyle. So, in coming from a really conservative background, like how do you think where's this all coming from?
Well, you're right. My parents met in high school, got married in high school, and promptly began having children, and they've been together ever since. And I don't believe either of them has ever had sex with another partner or been interested in having an affair or anything. It's just how they're built, and they're very happy together. So I grew up with that model, and that's one reason that I have every faith and belief in monogamy. When it works, it's great. It can be really wonderful for people. And yet, for myself, I from an early age began to suspect that I wasn't necessarily like everybody around me. I guess everybody has that feeling, our own, inner uniqueness. But when I was a young kid, I started getting very interested in art and drawing and music and sex from a very early age. And these were not interests that were shared by many people like you.
This is my guess. My guess is that your family probably had a lot of, what was really going on was buried and not spoken about, and I wonder if you somehow picked that up and reacted to it.
At best, I could just say that there was the sort of standard familial presumption of conformity. It's like this is how we are, this is how our family is, and we just assume you'll also grow up this way.
Right.
And yet I got to my teens and I began making noise about moving to New York. Well, no one in my family's left Alabama since Andrew Jackson kicked the Indians out. So they were like, why? I'm like, well, I want to go to art school, and I want to, pursue that career. And while I knew artists in the South, I felt that my place was going to be elsewhere.
Does your family know what you do, or how do you square that? Like, does your family know about your blog? How did that evolve, you being you and them being them?
I had the wisdom to bide my own counsel about certain things.
Did you feel guilty?
I don't know that I felt guilty so much as like kind of very interested and very confused is such a trite word, but like I didn't know how to make sense of it,
Right.
Like I didn't really spend much time in anxiety wondering, am I gay because I'm having sex with boys? But I did wonder, like, well, what does it mean that I'm having sex with boys? Like, I really like it, but I really like sex with women too. So
Were you like a good student, like your
Oh,
parents? Yeah, so your parents weren't concerned about you, and so you had a sense of privacy then.
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, I was a very stable kid. I didn't get in very much trouble. I excelled academically.
So you didn't like raise any red flags for them?
Well, it's, you know, the more people I get to know who are involved in alternative sexualities, I mean, this is a very common thread that, you know, one or the other of us will invariably say it's the good kids who get away with more.
So how about now? Does your family know about your blog and your sexuality now?
Well, when I started the blog about 5.5 years ago, I did it under pseudonym, and I worked very hard to maintain my privacy, even as I wrote about my intimate sexual life and my life as a father, because I have 4 kids. And my life was feeling, you know, pretty well divided. I have joint custody, so my life was pretty well divided into those 2 arenas. Like either I'm taking care of my kids, or I'm dating and I have my sex life.
So they still don't have any idea? I mean, do you feel like, is that pressure?
No.
They wouldn't understand, so you're just...
Oh, I think that they probably would understand. My parents are very understanding people, and they
really?
I feel unconditionally loved by them, and I love them unconditionally. But it's just, there's no reason for me to talk to my parents about my sexuality in explicit terms.
So they don't have any idea?
They have an idea.
They do?
Well, you know, I was essentially dating a gay boy in high school, and I wound up marrying a woman. So they are aware that I've had both interests.
And they were okay that you were dating a gay? They were pretty open-minded?
They were relieved. They were relieved when I got married to a woman.
I'm sure.
In my family, divorce was really uncommon. And my brother, my younger brother, this is when I was still married, my younger brother, his wife told him that she was having an affair with a woman and wanted to get a divorce. And this was very upsetting to my family because, you know, divorce is upsetting, but also she was having an affair, and oh my God, she's lesbian. What does that mean? They had kids, they had a house in the suburbs. They did, you know. My brother, you know, tried everything to work it out, even to the point of saying, "It's fine with me if you date women or you're in love with a woman, but we should stay together for the kids and for the house and everything else, and you can totally live that life." But she said that she couldn't. I mean, she couldn't just stay married to him and also be in love with this other woman. My parents were, you know, as I said, understandably upset. But what they did was they told her, you know, however this works out, you will always be our daughter. We love you very much. Her own parents disowned her and were horrible to her. And she remains very close to my parents and to all of us.
It's unusual that people from the South or any parents of that generation would be so open-minded.
They both have high school educations, and they've both worked really hard, just, you know, making money to raise 4 boys. But I think part of their worldview, I think, was shaped by my father's experience with his father. My father's parents were alcoholics, and my grandfather was in the Klan, and just a very vociferous racist.
Wow.
And Dad grew up in a household where his older sister was sort of the princess, and he was sort of the other kid. And he was guided a lot by an uncle who was very, very funny and very, very generous and just a lovely man. And my dad gives him a lot of credit for the way he turned out. My dad is hilarious and open-minded, just a wonderful, wonderful man.
I wanted to ask you too about, you had mentioned that you had a child before you were married, and I guess in college, was this somebody, a girlfriend from college?
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to know, like, if you guys thought about that and how being a father at that age influenced you, or influenced your sexuality. And
I didn't know the mother of my daughter very well when we were seeing one another. She got interested in me because I had long hair, and she liked it. And I thought she was cute. She looked like Molly Ringwald. And she would hang out with her friends in the dorm smoking pot, and then call me at a certain time and say, "Can I come over and see you?" And she'd come over, we'd have sex, and then she'd go back to the dorm. And I heard over the summer that she was pregnant. And I figured that kid is mine. So I contacted her, and she said, "Yeah, it is your kid, but I want my boyfriend to think it's his."